You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options. Facebook.com/TheOptionsInsider or via questions at TheOptionsInsider.com.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it's time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. You guys know how to get our stuff, of course, via the website. You want to dive deep into the archives, that's the place to go for all the great interviews we've done over the 11-plus years. Scary to say that, 11-plus years. Of course, our mobile app has all those great archives as well. If you want to just deliver it to your device of choice, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. Or you can join us live via Mixler like you are right now, joining us for some of our surprise, fun interviews. You never know who's going to cycle through the studio during the week. Like today's guest, he is Jim Toes, the president over there at the Securities Trader Association. Jim, well, I should say, first off, welcome to the studio, and then welcome back to the Options Insider Radio program.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's good to be in Chicago in August as opposed to January when I usually come.
This is the time. Yeah, you're right. Interesting. Yeah, the January. We'll get to that, all that fun stuff. But, Jim, since you mentioned you're here in August, what is it that brings you to town here in Chicago, Jim?
Well, we have 20 affiliates in the U.S., and one of the affiliates that we have is up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And their big event is Friday this week. So I came in a couple of days early to make the rounds and meet with some sponsors of the STA and obviously to stop by and have a conversation with you.
Of course, we're the marquee destination here in Chicago. Well, it's good to see you in person. We chatted a few months back at the Options Industry Conference. Listeners can go find that interview. I'm sure you probably checked it out on our network there on the special events feed or indeed in our Options Insider Radio feed there as well. I know you guys are working on a lot of projects. We'll get to, of course, the big event coming up forthwith in a little bit here. Jim, but you mentioned you're kind of in town here now for the Wisconsin STA. What else has kind of been on your radar? What's been taking up your time over there at STA since the last time you and I sat down and chatted, about 3 months ago?
Well, I mean, probably the most recent thing that we did that was most relevant to your audience is we've been doing some work with FINRA with their cross-product surveillance that they've been able to do. So FINRA, as we all know, has capabilities of surveilling activity in the options and the equity marketplace. Over the years, they've gotten much more sophisticated and intelligent with their ability to spot nefarious behavior, what they refer to as mini manipulation in the option space. So we've been spending time with FINRA on that, educating the members on it. We put out an open call on it, had a couple hundred people dial in for that, and we put out a piece last week titled Where Markets Collide, Cross-Product Surveillance.
Well, that is a huge area. Obviously, we do a lot with unusual activity here on the network's kind of been part and parcel of our content for a long time. And you're right, we have seen for a long time kind of the prevailing wisdom is that the quote unquote smart money, when they want to do something with advanced information, they tend to do it in options for a variety of reasons. The leverage obviously is there. Also, the surveillance hasn't always been there to kind of find some of these things. So it's interesting. I'm glad to hear you guys are doing that. Obviously with STA, you're kind of looking at a cross-product combination. So maybe doing activity with equities and with the options and some sort of combination they're in, because they're probably not just doing it just in options or just in stock, but they're kind of spilling over into both. So it sounds like that initiative's been pretty well received.
Yeah, no, it has been. So I mean, I think the part that we found most interesting as we were talking to FINRA about this is that there's been this huge movement of money into passive investing. So when you look in the equity market space, so much of the volume now gets traded on the market on close and market on open. So there isn't a ton of activity intraday in large stocks. So the ability, so when we started looking at in this area, the ability to maybe push around a large cap security today is possible. So you can move an equity in a large cap security that has options traded against them. You can move them around and obviously have that impact. The options which price automatically off the price of the underlying security, and then therefore that's what they're really looking at. They're looking at these cases of looking at mini manipulation in securities that never were prone to it in the past because there was so much liquidity in them.
That's funny. It's kind of contrary to think that these large names that are doing so much more volume today than they ever did. But you're right; it's concentrated in a handful of time frames, and when that's the case, it can be prone to some manipulation. Just the amount of volume we're seeing going up in these time frames is crazy. We have the people from FTSE Russell on our TWIFO show every week, and we're talking to them recently about their Russell reconstitution and just how much volume goes up in the couple of fractions of a second after the close on that day alone, when all of the Russell 2000 is being both Russell 2000 and 1000 are being reconstituted, and it's talking billions of shares in a fraction of a second. It's amazing. So I think to even think a decade or two ago that we would be here at this point where we could do so much volume in such a short time, let alone that those names could then be manipulated, it's kind of eye-opening. Well, Jim, if I was intrigued by topics like this and other related things, and I maybe wanted to attend an event in the Washington, D.C. area sometime in the October timeframe, where should I go? What should I do? Yeah, I think you have something for me, Jim.
Yeah, I think you should go to the JW Marriott, Pennsylvania Avenue, August 3 to 5. Listen, this is I think it's like the 6th year that we've had it in D.C. So, historically we used to have a boutique conference in Washington, D.C., and then we have like the big market structure one in a resort type setting. And we made the decision around 5 years ago just to kind of do away with the resort type setting and move it into D.C. And it's been something that's worked out well for us. I mean, we get around 650 folks at the event every year. We're able to attract a lot of regulators from the SEC and FINRA, a lot of staff members who are the ones who are writing policy for those congressional members. So they stop by the event, and it's just a good event all around. It's not just equities, it's options, it's ETFs, it's buy side, sell sides of all different shapes and sizes, and exchanges.
Like you mentioned, Jim, it's October 3rd through 5th in Washington, D.C. Got a great agenda looking at it here. And you're right. You have stuff kind of for all audiences. Obviously, since we speak to the options crowd first and foremost, let's start there. If someone's interested in that side of the space, what do you guys have for them this year, Jim?
Well, listen, we have a great panel with some of the thought leaders that are in the space. Kathy Clay is going to be on the panel, along with Slade Winchester and Paul Giganti from IMC. And other folks in the options universe as well. But I think the options folks, what they're realizing is that the equity market structure that's changed since like 2000. A lot of those rules that worked in equities are now trying to be put on top of the options marketplace, which obviously is a much different market structure, quote driven versus order driven. And I think that they realize that, listen, if we want to have a voice and an intelligent voice on where market structure should go in options, we really should be down in D.C. understanding how the equity marketplace works better and talking to the people who are going to be making those decisions on any type of regulation that comes out in options going forward. So there's something here for everybody.
Yeah, it's great to hear that the regulators are receptive to that kind of conversation. For a long time, I used to joke that, going down to the Hill and trying to advocate on behalf of derivatives, you were kind of like, you were a couple of notches above child predators in the eyes of the regulator, but not much. There really wasn't a lot of, shall we say, populist outcry to regulate in favor of or maybe lighten the regulatory load in the derivatives market. I think they've seen over years a lot of good outreach. Firms like, organizations like STA and OIC and everything else, OCC, have done a great job of really going down there and trying to educate some of these regulators and the legislators on the issues that face this industry. And it seems like slowly but surely, I wouldn't say we're there yet, not by a long shot, but we are starting to get there. Things like, effective capital allocation, margin rules, and things like that, not having some of these draconian transaction tax and other things that people have threatened in the past without really much understanding of their impact on the marketplace. It seems like Maybe I'm speaking out of turn. You're in DC all day long. Listen, it seems like we're getting there, though.
I do think they realize a couple of things. First off, they realize that for the mom and pop investor, that options are really the only way that they have to buy some type of an insurance on their portfolio to protect them in a down market. All right, so I think that message is getting out there that these are not, the word derivative gets used when it with options, and then obviously that word kind of scares people.
There's a reason we don't call it the derivatives insider, Jim. I don't think that would have the same cachet.
Yeah. So the regulators, I think they're starting to realize, like, listen, we don't want to be destroying the only means for retail investors to be protecting their portfolio with these investments. There are a lot of simple listed option strategies that are employed by millions of retail investors day in and day out that are good. They're just good for the overall safety and economy.
And obviously, we like options, but it's not all options at your event. Is obviously securities is right there in the name. So what else can we expect from some of the sessions of this event?
Well, you can listen. You're going to expect to see some. ETFs is a relatively new area that we're getting into. This is an asset class, obviously, that has grown dramatically between ETFs and ETPs, exchange traded products. For us, they've only been around for 25 years, which when you think about how long equities have been around, that's really nothing. And so we are there is a real big crossover between some of the firms who are options market makers also have an ETF business down the hall from them. So we've been able to attract them just through people that are familiar from options market maker firms who have come to the event, go back to the office, they say good things about us. At least I hope they say good things about us. And, it's a really cool event. You got to come down to it. I know it's Washington, D.C. And so we've been attracting more of ETF folks coming down. So this year is the first year we're actually going to do dedicate part of the program, to ETFs themselves.
Yeah, I had a chance to go down to the Inside ETFs event for the first time this year in January. It's an enormous event, one of the biggest conferences I've ever been to in terms of financially focused. So clearly there's a lot of interest in that side of the space, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. And I'm looking forward to going to that. I know I've been talking about going to this for years. I'm finally going to come down and check it out for myself, Jim. I'm looking forward to listeners. You guys can look forward to hopefully some great content coming from us, as you come to expect. A lot of great events, some interviews, maybe the panel sessions, all sorts of good stuff. You never know, so stay tuned. October 3rd through 5th, so all that will be hitting the network. And Jim, if people want to learn more, they want to register for the conference, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to securitytraders.org. And listen, it is some fun stuff going on too. We got Colin Quinn as the comedian going to be there Thursday night. Looking forward to having Colin go. And we have a nice charity event going on, taking place on Friday. It's a run walk for folks like myself around the Washington D.C. Mall for a benefit for Wall Street Rides for autism research. So it's a good event.
Great. Check it out, securitiestraders.org to learn more. And Jim, I look forward to seeing you in person yet again in a few months down in Washington.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.